Hi, I'm Mike, owner of the In-Groove in Phoenix, Arizona. Today I'm going to do a video kind of addressing a question I've gotten at the store pretty heavily the last couple of weeks. And that is, hey, Mike, the Kevin Gray all-tube analog cut copy of War's Greatest Hits, how does that sound in comparison to the one that Analog Productions did a couple of months back? And the thing is, the War's Greatest Hits that Kevin did actually came out years ago as a record store day title. I listened to it a bunch when, news kind of broke that that was Kevin Gray mastering it on it wasn't completely his all tube system, because I guess he was in the process of working on building his all analog, all tube setup for Coherent Records, the label side, the recording side of the studio. And while he had most of that system in place, he decided to cut this War's Greatest Hits. He didn't tell anybody about it, and the news kind of dropped a little bit later. But when that news came out, I listened to it quite a lot. And it was actually put into my sound room as a demo record when that happened, because it did sound fantastic. Now, in all fairness, the original of this sounds fantastic as well. This is a good sounding record and always has been. But I was using it as a demo record. It sounds fantastic. But when I use things as demo records that aren't easily available, it kind of creates issues, because I have demo records and people are listening to equipment and they go, this is fantastic. I want this. I want to buy this. You're like, well, I don't have it. Well, sell me that copy. No, I'm not going to sell you that. So I take stuff that is not easily accessible out of the demo room. The reason I have my top 100 imprint analog records you should own list. And that's what I try to keep in the demo room. So that came out. I stopped listening to it because of that. It just wasn't easily accessible. But when this came out, the Analog Productions version, I started listening to this quite a bit. And it sounded fantastic. But the thing was, I never kind of listened to them back to back. So when I was asked, how does it sound? I said, well, I don't know. I've got the 33 cut, the Kevin Gray cut here in the store. It sounds fantastic. And from memory, the 45 that AP did, cut by Ryan Smith, that sounded fantastic, but I don't know. Let me go home and listen to them. I'll tell you guys. So this is me, after going home and listening to them, telling you guys how they sound. I will start by saying that they are quite different. First of all, let me show you this. This is a repress. The original record store day version of this was on a gold color vinyl. A little bit on the noisy side. Now this is on, what do they call this? Sounds of Summer vinyl. So this is sea blue vinyl. Now this is actually a better sounding vinyl than the record store day version of it was. This has a quieter, much lower noise floor than the gold vinyl. But it's still, keep in mind, this is a budget-ish press. This is $24.99 from Rhino, versus at 33 RPM, versus a $60 audiophile record. Now, granted, the mastering on that's every bit audiophile, but this is a true audiophile record from start to finish, from the jacket to the record, the quality of the vinyl, which unfortunately, you're not going to be able to compete with the quality of this vinyl versus the Rhino. You just can't. But when the music is going, you can't tell anyways. And really, after I ultrasonically clean that, that's a pretty quiet piece of vinyl. So I'm not going to complain about the quiet nature of the vinyl. They're both, this is of course fantastic. That is actually quite good. And if I had the gold vinyl version of this, I would immediately upgrade to this version of it, because it's inexpensive and it sounds pretty damn good. So that's just a no-brainer right there. Okay. What do I like? So this is a unique situation, because the AP has traits of a record that I typically like, but in this case, I don't like as much as the 33. Now, let me tell you why. The 33 has a much more balanced presentation, and by that, I mean, I really feel like Kevin probably just left what was on the tape or close to it alone, maybe volume match from track to track, which is a common issue you're going to have with greatest hits. You got multiple songs from multiple years, from multiple studios. But short of that, I really felt like this is probably something that he left alone, in the sense that one of the things that was most noticeable was there is a lot more detailed and a lot more high-end frequency information. I heard less of it on the Analog Productions version, but I heard more bottom end. So this is a record, the AP version, that actually has a little less top end, a little bit more bottom end, and that kind of, when you listen to the two of them back and back, the Analog Productions kind of has a warmer, boomier sound, which is something that I normally like. But in this case, it's an R&B record, so in a sense, it kind of already naturally, by the nature of the music, has that boomier sound. And I think the Analog Productions is a little much. Also, when you lose that high end, it kind of pushes the music kind of to the mid to lower end side. You know, that's what your mind is focusing on, the mid range to the lower end, where the Kevin Gray cut had a really nice overall balance to it. Your brain doesn't focus in on the bass. Like when I listen to the AP version of the Analog Productions, my mind is focusing in exclusively on the bass lines because they're so predominant. Now, granted, they're fantastic, and that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world to be focusing in on, but they're so predominant, that's kind of where my brain goes. With the Kevin Gray cut of this record, my brain is all over the place because I've got a more natural, better presentation of the music, if that makes any sense. You can hear more of everything that's going on. I will say there is a little bit of sound quality change from tune to tune. Some tracks are a little better to demo than others. But I think the overall theme is, my best guess would be that two things happen. These are the only two possibilities in my mind. Ryan Smith got the tape, he pushed the bass up a little bit, and pushed down the treble a little bit. Or Kevin Gray got in the studio, dialed the bass down a little bit, pushed up the treble a little bit. But the problem is, how do you increase something that's not there? So I kind of feel like the treble was maybe pushed back on the, this is 100% theoretical guesswork on my part here, guys. But I just feel like there was some high-end frequencies kind of dialed back on the Analog Productions, and not on the AP. And the bass could have gone either way. The bass could have been left by Ryan and taken away by Kevin, or boosted by Ryan, left alone by Kevin, or taken away by Kevin and left alone by, you know what I mean? It's that configuration, one of those configurations. But either way, I think the Kevin Gray cut overall has a much more inviting, more relaxing, more all-encompassing sound. I don't know if that is a good way of explaining it. I don't know if you guys can. It's kind of a stream of conscious review here where I'm kind of just telling you. I've listened to it like 5 or 6 times. I've been wanting to make this video over the last couple of weeks, but you know, I've had some changes here in the home studio. I've had to get dialed in, so I kind of put off making this. But because of that, I've had a chance to listen to it even more. And just before I shot this video, I listened to it even more. They're both really great. And if you're not, the thing is, I'm always going to gravitate, unless a 45 blows away a 33, I'm always going to gravitate towards a 33 because it's cheaper and it's easier, and I don't want to be switching records every 7 minutes if I can avoid it. And in this case, you can avoid it. But also, I really truly feel that the Kevin Gray is the much overall better record. Now, granted, I wish that this was done on beautiful QRP vinyl. I think that would have been a much better. You know, they both have this foil cover. You know, this is obviously just the thin, cheapy cover, and this is the thick, stout and tip-on. Both are foil. The foiling on, I mean, this is a nicer foiling because it's like a matte foiling. I mean, the AP presentation-wise is better, but the mastering, I think, is better with the Kevin Gray cut. Now, I sell both of these, and I'm not doing myself any favors by telling you to buy the record that I make, you know, $4 on versus the much more expensive record that I make more money on. But while this Rhino Sounds of Summer is in print, I don't think this is going to be a permanent inline item. These Rhino promotional records tend not to be that. So Rhino does Start Your Ear Off Right at the beginning of the year. They do Rocktober titles, and now we've got these Sounds of Summer. Those records don't typically stay in print for years on end. Sometimes a record comes back. I'm thinking of, for instance, the Jane's Addiction Ritual Habitual that was on a Pearl vinyl. That went away, shot up in value, came back, and I think it's still available. Maybe this ends up being that. But if not, I mean, for $24.99, this is a no-brainer. Buy this because you're not only getting an amazing sounding all analog Kevin Gray cut, but you're getting something that was done on a tube system that he uses for his high-end jazz releases, on the Coherent label. So far, the Kirsten Ekins and Anthony Wilson's. Something that he said, other than this one test record, essentially it was a test because it hadn't been done, he's never going to do again. So this is a home run. This is a no-brainer title. I highly recommend you get this thing for $24.99. I mentioned it quite a few times on the channel, but as a standalone, just comparing the two, for me, all day long with this $24.99 home run. Now, if you guys got this record you've done this comparison yourself, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. It doesn't necessarily... People always tell me their opinions, and people have different systems in different ears, and they like what they like. But I'm kind of curious of the perspective you guys might have on this versus me. I can totally see somebody liking this other version. It's thumpier. It's bassier. It wallops. But I think it's at the detriment of the rest of the music. All right, guys, check us out online at theingroove.com. Until next time.